Imagine you see Hund in a book, on a wall, or anywhere, and you pay attention to it. If you don't speak German, you probably don't know what that means. How does your brain encode that word when you further pay attention? How do you do to remember it in the long run, to use it fluently in your speech, assuming you learn German? This episode is the third of a series inspired by the book Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning, written by Peter Brown and two cognitive scientists, Henry Rodrigo III and Mark McDaniel. In the previous episode, the second one, I addressed the three crucial characteristics for effective learning that are spaced testing sessions, interleaving what one is learning during those spaced practice sessions, and varying of all sorts during those spaced and interleaved testing sessions. This episode is a bit more. It builds up on the previous video. So back to the word I was talking about. If you don't speak German, your brain starts a process called encoding. We all go through this step every time we encounter something new. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, your brain encodes the information in short-term memory. We wouldn't be able to create a priority otherwise, and that is necessary also for resource allocation. That memory is short-term precisely because it does not hold information for a long time. That's self-evident. It's the same reason why you probably have already forgotten the word that I said a couple of seconds ago if you'd never heard it. Right? But suppose you really want to know what it means. You enter the word in the search engine and you read the definition, see images, boom, you start to have mental representations of Hund. And it's often at this stage called consolidation that most people stop during learning. For many of the things we see and want to understand, that stage is usually enough. But for things that are the focus of a learning process, like a word to remember, the description of a mechanism, a package in a programming language, or a beautiful quote from a book, a further crucial step is necessary for properly encoding the information, and that's retrieval. Retrieval is another word for testing oneself. In other words, you need to ask your mind to produce by itself what is the focus of your learning. And it's even better if you can space the periods when you test yourself. Try to mix it with other things you are learning, that's interleaving, and vary uses and contexts of the learning object when you can. What this creates is more cues to retrieve or recall the knowledge later when you need it, or when you need to combine it to other pieces of knowledge. I'm aware that there are many things we'd like to remember, but are not able to review it in a serious way, spaced, interleaved, and varied way. There are two things you should do at minimum immediately, if the bare minimum is what you want to do to learn, or to really learn. The first is trying to link the knowledge to something you already know, to fit it within a larger structure that already exists in your brain. Episode 5 and 7 go deeper into this. Actually, that is what reading to understand should be. For your new word in German, Hund, you can think to yourself that you have one, or that you may have been beaten by one, or you may help yourself remember the sound by connecting it to the word hunt in English that you already know. And that might be embedded in a story such that before they were domesticated, Hunds helped men hunt. In brief, what you do is that you try to make many connections as possible. The second thing is to try to recall those links you've created mentally at least once. For instance, if you meet someone called Ted, let's say, in addition to linking the person or the name to all the people you know who are called Ted, or to physical characteristics of the person, you should repeat it. Say it out loud to the person after they said it, and when you're done with the conversation, say it again, and potentially after. That said, from my own experience, spacing the learning does something to your brain that nothing else does, not even trying consciously to link it to what you already know. Actually, spacing, interleaving, and variation naturally link your knowledge to previous learning. This is why, for the things you're serious about knowing, you cannot just stop where you search the concept and read a lot and understand a lot about. If you pay attention to things you already really know, let's say the phone number of your significant other, or some expertise you have, you've necessarily had time spaced out interleaved with other things in various situations where you tested yourself or tried to retrieve the knowledge which has made you able to effortlessly use it now. When you space your learning, you allow what you're learning to get connected to different time, different moods of yours, different states of mind. When you interleave your learning, you allow it to be differentiated from other knowledge, which is a way of linking to them. Variation is the most obvious, since varying sources of your knowledge, levels of difficulty, precisely creates multiple links to other pieces of knowledge. The illusory sense of mastery that we experience when reading massively during a single learning session, or understanding on the go after reading a lot, that fleeting fluidity that we seem to achieve, it is precisely because we remember the information by drawing mostly on short-term memory, and it is short for a reason. Even I get trapped in that sense of illusory mastery when I've encountered something for the first time and read a lot about it, which is why talking about the science of learning is a big helper for me too. In that vein, there are two techniques that you should permeate your learning with, whether you're trying to understand something for the first time or reviewing it as part of the spacing, interleaving, and variation practice: post-learning reflection and generation. Post-learning reflection. About 800 students participate in an experiment for a psychology course. After being presented key concepts, they are asked to write in their own words what these concepts mean and give examples. For other concepts, students were asked after slide presentations to take notes as they would usually do, main ideas, what they perceive as important. Subsequent tests during the semester revealed that students performed way better on concepts they elaborated on in their own words in comparison to concepts they took notes about from the slides as they would normally do. Again, testing is what matters, not just rereading or writing as you're reading. I cannot tell you how many people I know who believe they truly learn when they make summaries of their courses with open materials. That's one way of going wrong about reflection. Reflection is when you use at first only your mind after the learning process, taking the class, reading the book chapter, watching this episode, to think and write about what that process was like. What were key points, examples, and most importantly, how does that relate to what I already know? Generation. When you try your best on a question or a problem before looking at the solution or asking for help, you are said to be generating, because in doing so you create the need to fill a gap in your knowledge. When you check the solution without reflecting, your brain doesn't fill out any gap, because it doesn't even recognize the existence of that gap. We've all had these moments when we check for the solution to a problem only to find a couple of seconds later that we cannot remember it, or the process to get it even as we seemed very sure to know it when we saw it. The authors of the book express it this way: unsuccessful attempt to solve a problem encourage deep processing of the answer when it is provided later, creating a fertile ground for its encoding in a way that simply reading the answer cannot do. So, reflecting the right way, which is a way to test yourself, and generating the answer by yourself, which is another way of pre-testing yourself, embedded in a spaced, interleaved, and varied approach, make you avoid illusions of knowledge, which is the content of the fourth video of the series, the episode I enjoyed writing the most. At the end of this episode, you probably feel like you understood well. How can you be sure? Reflect, test yourself. The illustration of the video is downloadable in the description, along with the PDF file summarizing it. Bye.